His dedication, his hunger, his growth. It's his journey.
Is freedom just a figment of imagination of words, or we just curse
turning obstacles into testimonies, lemons into lemonade.
The only freedom that I can see is in me.
His passion, his dedication, his pain. This is Behind the Journey by LionElTheMastermind. LionElTheMastermind. This is his story, Behind the Journey.
People don't understand that the nigga got a plan. But you can try to stop this shit, and I'm gonna kick your ass. Bad to the bone. Bad to the bone. Bad. Bad. Back in the day when life was easy, but now it's so hard, I was shocked to go back and be a kid again.
Born the 15th of December, Brian Lionel White Jr., his humble beginnings started in Baltimore. He grew up in a household where financial struggles would take over, a single mother, a grandmother, and additional family members in one household trying to survive.
You know, I can remember being a young person, being a young individual, growing up in the cities of, the inner cities of Baltimore. I remember how, complex my journey was and how difficult it was because we came from a poor family. We didn't have a lot of money, we didn't have a lot of opportunities, but we did the best we could with the things that we had.
Finally getting out of a difficult state, Brian attended school in Featherbed.
I never went to school, I never really had anybody go to school because my mom worked. My mom basically took care of us on a $3.50 salary back in the early 90s. We struggled. My dad wasn't really much there, but I'm grateful to have him, but he wasn't in my life as much as he should have been.
During this time, Brian's mother met his stepfather, who came in his life and became the father figure he so desperately lacked.
He came into the picture. He gave me a lot of good game and a lot of good information. He taught me how to think on my feet, so I give him credit for that. And during this time, he took me, my mom, out of the hood. He took us out of the hood. He basically helped us get out of a really difficult situation.
Finally getting out of a difficult state, Brian attended school in Featherbed Elementary. During this time, Brian would go over to his cousin's house, and that's where he learned how to rap and record music.
But because I didn't have the grades and I wasn't going to school, I was behind. I was behind in grade levels. I couldn't read on par. I couldn't write on par. I couldn't do anything on par because I wasn't going to school. I wasn't going to school at all. I was just playing video games and watching Mo Money and Friday every day.
During this time, Brian was held back a grade. And it was during this time, Brian's life would change in a major way. He found himself needing to use the restroom. And this was a moment that would change his life forever.
I'm looking, washing my hands, and then I see some feet basically dangling from the stall. I see a kid's feet dangling from the stall, and I'm curious because nobody's saying anything. The kid is not responding, he's not saying anything. So me being curious, I pushed the door open and I saw that he was completely unconscious. I saw that he wasn't breathing. I saw that he needed help.
Brian, seeing this fellow classmate in trouble, he proceeded to check to see if the young boy was breathing. Seeing that this child had collapsed and was unresponsive, Brian took matters into his own hands and gently grabbed the boy over his shoulder and screamed for help from a teacher. Brian was able to help save this young classmate from dying, and in the process Brian's school recognized his heroic behavior that he was awarded a Safety and Aero Award from the Maryland State School of Boards and from his school Featherbed Elementary. Before a pursuit in music, Brian was a gifted childlike architect creating homes, buildings and tunnels since the age of 9 years old up until his teenage years. He would sit in his room for days drawing and designing mansions, buildings, and underground tunnels. Without any formal training, at 9 years of age was designing homes, know exactly how to create these marvelous structures with ease. Finally reaching high school, he was able to advance in architecture with classes offered to him by his school. Being able to apply for these courses, he was said by his teacher to have been extremely advanced. His teacher would allow him to draw during his lunch breaks and after school, because he seen the potential in Brian's creative and skills. Even with his love for architectural, the love for music won't die. Since he now was in high school, the love of music became stronger and stronger. Brian, now older, decided to go for his dreams in music, because as a teenager it was his therapy to cope with depression and anxiety from childhood trauma. He would become relentless with his full dedication to his pursuit of music. In his room writing songs about his childhood experiences and his issues with struggles of childhood sexual abuse by a neighbor's teenage daughter as a 6-year-old child. Chasing his music dreams and not fully understanding the music business, Brian was taking so many financial losses from engineers using him to video directors taking money and taking months to finish videos while requesting more money. He lost $25,000 during this time by trusting others to help him that he trusted.
I know.
During this time in Brian's life, things seemed to take a turn for the worse. Brian's role model and father figure decided to abandon him and his mother and brother, leaving them in financial ruin. His mother lost one of her businesses, rent wasn't being paid on the home, debts have escalated to numbers we could not imagine, and now his family forced to pay debts that was created by his stepfather. At this time Brian began drinking alcohol to numb the pain. He was forced to help figure out a solution for something he and his mother had no control of knowing of. For 7 months him and his mother and brother struggled to try to figure out how to get themselves out of a mess we had no knowledge of. 7 months later, his stepfather would attempt to return to their home, and Brian had so much rage in him that he attacked his stepfather for the pain that he had caused. Fearing jail time, he fled to a family member's house for safe haven, in the hopes this situation would die down. During this time he would see so much dysfunction and chaos in this place that Brian became more isolated and more stressed. Finally, a small break when Brian received so extra money from taxes in which he could try to use that money to fund his dreams in music. However, after one of the family members found out about this extra money, Brian was then verbally abused and threatened to give more money to this person. Seeing that Brian could not handle the pressure of this person's demands, he confronted them. Confronting this person turned into a physical altercation that led Brian having no choice but to leave this place. He left with his things and became homeless because he could not take the mental and emotional abuse he suffered. He slept in his car and slept on friends' couches for weeks until he got some help from a friend's mother who allowed him to rent a small room for $200 per month. He stayed there for 10 months until he lost his job. During this time, Brian's financial troubles seemed to get worse. He lost his job, he was forced to move back in with mother, his car was repossessed, placed in debts he could not pay back and sued by creditors. He was forced to get government assistance from food stamps to Medicare. Seeing that he could not afford to pay back his loans, he had to file bankruptcy. Unable to afford a lawyer to help him file bankruptcy, Brian was forced to research and learn how to file his own bankruptcy without any legal help. He found a lady in the Maryland Legal Aid Department to review his documentation to make sure it was correct, and then he proceeded to file his own paperwork without help. It was a success. During this time, after filing bankruptcy on his own, he proceeded to change his life and decided to enroll into trucking school to obtain his CDL license to help fund his dream. He completed the course in 30 days and passed on his first try. Now he has a fresh new start. Brian now started to save up his money from trucking to help fund his dream of music. It's during this time, Brian would purchase studio equipment for a portable studio on his truck to record. He would finally start to learn how to record and produce his own music while driving the truck full-time for 70 hours a week, and also he would recording after 14-hour workdays. Seeing he was making progress quickly, he learned how to play the piano in 3 weeks, the harmonica, drums in a few days of practicing. Then he set his sights on learning how to record, mix and master his music in about a 6-month period of trial and error. He built a home studio, a film studio, and a live performance studio in his home to save money for having to pay other companies to use their equipment on their time. He and his brother decided to learn how to film music videos, and over an 18-month period became professionally good enough to shoot full-length films and music videos on a professional level.
What a wonderful world. I see blue skies.
Live music, like I relate to it, bro. And that song just be right back.
Having things, gonna be having things. Having things, gonna have some things, gonna be to maintain. Having things, gotta have some things, gonna be having things, gonna be having things. East Coast, West Coast, big wigs, I tried them.
Just when things started to get better, Brian started having breathing issues while sleeping. He would wake up gasping for air at night and notice his health started to decline. He would have health scares where he would be on the road having to pull over and call 911 for help. During this time, Brian was diagnosed with sleep apnea, which affected his health. Now faced with this diagnosis, he now has to sleep with a PAP machine when he has moments at night of not breathing. Finding out this news was heartbreaking for him. Now his life would not be normal again, but be hopeful. He got the help needed to live a healthy life. To make things worse, during this time Brian's family informed him his younger cousin had been killed in a shooting between his cousin and another group of young boys. Brian first responded with numbness because he couldn't face the harsh realities of knowing his relationship with his cousin was not on good terms. He felt guilty and felt like had he been there he could have given better advice and influence to steer him in a better direction. 8 months later, now the very cousin who helped get into music was also killed at his little brother's funeral. Suffering the loss of the very person who helped discover his talents in music, Brian is now dealing with heavy depression for losing now 3 cousins in 10 months' time. On top of those losses, Brian has now received more bad news that his childhood friend who he was having difficulties with had passed away from health conditions. He didn't even get the chance to make up for their fight, and Brian is feeling extremely guilty. Things seemed to get worse at work when he wasn't paying full attention to a rail stop and he drove over it and caused $47,000 in damages to the vehicle. A major setback to his career in trucking because it took weeks to repair this damage and he lost money while being out of work, which caused problems with promotion of his music. Lucky he had insurance, but the losses of money not working caused a financial strain on his pursuit in the music industry. Even through the struggles of life and pain, Brian found the strength to channel those emotions into something positive with his music. He decided to, even with record of labels only offering him 1/10 of what he invested into his career, he would decide to create a small independent label called Diverse Recordings. The company would focus on producing only positive and authentic music for Brian's listeners. He would spend all of his money into this venture, and with failures and setbacks he just wouldn't give up. He started to see success in the international market of music because America's audience was more into violence and negative forms of music. Lionel noticed that if his own country would not show him love, he would find it in countries like Africa, Brazil and Latin America, where they see Lionel for who he was, a star. The clothing business. Brian noticed other artists copying his fashion sense and his music video ideas. He saw people not give him his credit, so he decided to sit himself apart and decide to research clothing manufacturing plants overseas to help him create his 200 designs he created in a few months of working. After he created these designs, he partnered with overseas manufacturing plants to have these amazing pieces brought to life in front of his eyes. And then he decided to create this amazing clothing company called Nerdy Crew 82. Making this decision allow him to be the only artist without label help with a clothing company that he wore before he became successful and after. This move set him aside from the rest of artists. Now he was an independent label, a film producer, a clothing designer, and a musician who played multiple instruments and produced music. It's simply amazing to watch how this artist turned so much pain and trauma into something so inspirational. From so many trials this man has endured, to see him turn it into wisdom. So much pain turn into testimony. Life struggles into hope. And being authentically him make people relate.
Don't wanna see me rise, they wanna see me fall, but I'm way too fly.
Through it all, Lionel has found a way to persevere.
Pull up to the spot in a double black Phantom.
The brilliance.
You know me in the club going bananas. This is not a dream, people, this is what we live in. The fast lane, people with their money got no limits. Pull up to the spot in a double black Phantom. You know me in the club going bananas. This is not a dream, people, this is what we live in.
The honesty.
The fast lane, people with their money got no limits.
The fire inside him to keep going. The genius. The man. Lionel the Mastermind. He is him. His greatness. His passion. His resilience. Not too many could have done what this man has done on his own with no help. This is his story. Behind the journey. Lionel the Mastermind. Lionel the Mastermind. Behind the journey.